Wanna talk? So let's talk. Here. Talk. You wanna talk? You gotta talk, you need to talk. News talk.
I talk, you talk to Solomon. I talk, you talk to Solomon. Yeah, let's talk to Solomon. Talk to Solomon.
You gotta talk your
Welcome back to the Talk to Solomon Show. I'm your in-studio guest host, retired Police Chief Steve Davis. With us tonight by phone is the Commander, Stan Solomon. Stan, you still with us?
Absolutely.
Absolutely, I like that. Brent Johnson's also with us this evening. Brent, are you still there?
I sure am. Having a good time today.
Good, good. We're always glad to have you on the show. And also, our guest host is Dr. Alan Keyes. And Dr. Keyes, like to start with this story that comes out of beautiful downtown San Francisco that says public nudity may be on the way out in San Francisco because they're finally getting fed up with all the naked people hanging around downtown, and they're tired of wiping off the park bench seats to make sure the dirty butts didn't screw it up. So you ended the last segment pretty much saying that one person's, it's true, it's right in the story. They have to put some kind of cover on their bottom to sit down because you don't know where it's been, right? So, but you ended the last segment with a comment that's pretty much said that one person's rights can't really just dominate someone else's rights. And so here what we have is, I believe, that exact situation. And so even though, you know, California's so far left, it's just about fallen off the face of the earth. It's still there. And now they're having a dilemma where they want people to be nude, but they can't stand it anymore. So what are your thoughts about what's happening now in San Francisco?
I don't know. I'm laughing, and yet it's a little bit like raising children when I hear stuff like this, because part of being a parent, I think, is having the patience to realize that there are times when your kids are just not going to learn from you. They must go out and learn from experience. You can see what's going to happen. You know they're not going to like the consequence, but they won't hear what you've got to say, and sometimes they've just got to go through it. And I think that, sadly, with respect to what we could think of as mores, you know, the basic rules that have come to govern what we do in public places, this notion that those rules existed just so people couldn't have fun and do whatever they pleased and so forth, it's just nonsense. Those rules exist because in the course of several thousand years of human experience, society's actually got a basic sense of what's going to be most conducive to being able to live together without too much, you know, yucky stuff going on, which is going to kind of ruin the whole thing for everybody. And that notion that individuals should be able to just throw off their constraints, no matter what effect it has on other individuals. But also, by the way, something we sadly forget, you also have to consider the effect it has on the public as a whole. The common spaces, the common places, the common sense and environment in which we live and share. That has to be taken account of too, because the common good is part of what is rightly considered to be the interest and best interest and common interest of everybody who lives in the society. And so the rules that govern politeness, for instance, and how you behave in public, what you do in public, what you don't do in public. Those kinds of things are, at the end of the day, a consequence of this sense that, yeah, there's a liberty that individuals have, but there's also the fact that we should be free to live together in relative decency, cleanliness, and peace in public places. The fact that we have to go through all this junk, though, Chief, to rediscover this basic common sense, I don't know. Is this part of the way the whole dominance of life by the scientific method makes us stupid? We must learn from experiment, therefore we refuse to learn from experience, even though it be the experience of thousands of years. I don't know. But it just that's what ran across my mind, just listening to an account. So the people of San Francisco are finally going to learn the lesson that has been learned by the human race as a whole for thousands of years. But they had to just learn it for themselves, just like kids sometimes.
Well, I know Stan has got some comments, but before you talk, Stan, I want you to know that the council in San Francisco won't allow nudity in the council meetings. So now let us know your thoughts other than shooting and branding.
Well, I think that Alan has hit a valid point. Let me just throw some data for the viewers and listeners' consideration. Half, approximately, of all deaths in the homosexual community come from experimentation in extreme sexual acts. The average life expectancy of people in the homosexual lifestyle is dramatically lower, not by 10%, but by 20, 30, 40% than people in the monogamous heterosexual model. I'm just confirming what Alan has said. Life has taught us, humanity, over thousands of years, that some things are destructive, some things are irrelevant, and some things are constructive. Now, one of the things that's interesting in San Francisco, where if you have an I and a Q, you're not allowed to even be in the city limits, is that they're saying we're not going to allow nudity except in gay parades, where they can parade in front of God and everyone, sodomizing each other and whatever else they decide to do, 1, 2, 20, or as is known to be the average of almost 1,000 sex partners in their shortened life. There is no upside, and there is a dramatic downside to humanity and to the individuals involved. Excuse me, and that is why, after being yelled at and dragged, kicking and screaming, even the lunatic left have realized it's their own family members, their own kids, their own fellow human beings, their own fellow citizens that are being destroyed. And I say, don't go to San Francisco and don't accept any mail without a return address.
All right, let's go to Brent Johnson. So, Brent, you've heard the story. What's your views on this?
Well, I think Stan actually brought up a particularly cogent point, and you glossed over it, and there's all this humor that's underlying the whole discussion. But the point that you brought up goes to my issue. And the point you brought up, Stan, was that, yeah, they want to say that nudity is illegal except during the gay pride parade when it's okay. And it is that type of inconsistency in legislative acts that has me concerned. That, the people who legislate tend to think of themselves as rulers rather than public servants. And with that comes a degree of irresponsibility and overstepping their bounds. If you're going to make a statement on behalf of the constituents that nudity in public is wrong, then you make the statement. Nudity in public is wrong, that's the end of it. But if you're going to sit there and say nudity in public is wrong, except during the gay pride parade or during this or during that, then I have to ask the question as to what the motivations are of the legislators. It doesn't sound like they're representing the people. It sounds like they're representing special interests. And that, in turn, leads me to be concerned. You give them an inch, then what's the next thing they're going to take? First, no public nudity. Then, remember from the demolition man that you were in violation of the use of bad words statute? Every time you say something you're not supposed to say. So if you don't have a honorable, moral, upstanding legislative body that is enacting these, then the laws themselves have to be suspect, even if you think they're worthwhile laws.
Well, I have to say I agree wholeheartedly with what Brent had pointed out there, and I think one of the problems is that these guys think of themselves as rulers when they're not supposed to be rulers. The folks we find in our government, city councils, legislatures, whatever, they're supposed to be representatives. What do representatives do? Representatives ought to represent the common sense of the people who elected them about what are the proper standards required for the people as a whole. That's what the word public means, by the way. The word public comes ultimately from the Latin word for people. And it means that which concerns or has to do with the whole people. Right? Those are the public things. And so they are to represent folks. They're not the rulers, because in point of fact, as I keep trying to get people to focus on again, according to our understanding of self-government, the rule or standard is not ultimately one that is simply grounded in human whim. It's one that reflects the endowment of our nature and conscience and other attributes by God. And so you're trying to ascertain how to, what can and should be done for the good of the whole community or people or public, representing a conscientious effort to apply those standards which reflect the endowment by God of right for all people, so that we can live harmoniously together. This has no place for rulers, because in that sense, the ruler is the one who rules the universe. But the appliers of the rules are then those who are to represent conscientious people who chose them in trying to apply the rules and in human terms in a way that's going to be conducive to the good of the whole community. But which politician thinks this way anymore, Brand? I think they all think of themselves now like we go out like we're choosing a king or choosing by plebiscite, some ruler to tyrannize over us. It's periodic dictatorships that we have instead of periodic elections.
That is the problem. That is exactly the problem, Alan. I had spoken with Ron Paul a couple of years ago in an interview, and I asked him that question. I said, Dr. Paul, do you think that your colleagues in Congress consider themselves more rulers or public servants? And he said, I don't think most of them are malicious, but they think they are rulers. That is exactly the problem. We're not supposed to be ruled. We're supposed to be served.
All right, let's change the topic to your money and how the government steals it. I have 4 articles here, and after looking at these, it looks to me like it's the federal government versus the states. I'm going to read the headlines, and then you'll understand what they are, and then we can talk about the underlying issue. The first one is Treasury Secretary Geithner wants Congress to lift the limit to how much money the country can borrow. He says that it should be unlimited, and Congress should just get the heck out of the way and let the government borrow as much money as they want. The second story says that Homeland Security is now promoting welfare to new immigrants. They have government websites and information to tell new immigrants how to get on welfare right away with all of the different government programs. And here's a story that says Ohio lawmakers intensify the war over social issues because Ohio realizes that they're going to go broke paying for all these social issues. And then the last story says Oklahoma will not implement the Obamacare exchange. There's also 15 other states that have done this, including I heard I think it was the Alabama governor this morning on television where they won't implement Obamacare. But it appears to me that there's a growing fight now between the states and the federal government where the government wants everyone on welfare and the states say, you know what, not going to happen. Dr. Keyes, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, many, because I think that these are issues that reflect what I think is the really dangerous situation of our whole way of life, especially when it comes to our basic institutions of government. We're seeing, I think, very serious now treatment of these moves and desire for secession of the different states as we watch these abuses growing at the federal level, and people are thinking, no, we got to get out of here because that's not right. That's not what's supposed to be going on in this society. And in that respect, I think they're right on point. Though I think the conclusion they draw, let's get out of here, is a little premature, in my opinion, when we haven't done what we need to do to try to revive and apply a form of government that actually rids us of these kinds of abuses. But I think that that's where we are right now, and people are looking for ways to make sure that in their states and localities, they're not going to have to put up with government policies that violate fundamental right, that disrespect the Constitution. And I think when you look at what's going on with the debt ceiling, you know, do people forget that there were reasons why certain things were put in the Constitution? There's a reason why revenue-raising measures were to start in the House of Representatives. Revenue-raising measures were to start in the House of Representatives so that taxes would be based on real representation of people at the grassroots, so that you couldn't have a king-like chief executive raising taxes by fiat so that you could have a noble class come into some deal with nobility in other countries to impose burdens on their own people by treaty, which would then destroy and bankrupt the nation, which they're now trying to do through these UN treaties and things of that kind. You couldn't do it because in order to raise money, you had to consult the people who represented folks at the district level right there where they lived. The people we would today probably refer to as the grassroots. That's what the House of Representatives is supposed to do, represent folks at the grassroots and make sure that things aren't being done over their objections and in a way that destroys their best interests. And that all of that is being thrown aside. And sadly, I think, being thrown aside regardless of party label and all this, because we now have an elite class that is trying to reimpose elitist government and destroy government of, by, and for the people and in the overall interest of the public, that is, the people as a whole. That's going to be thrown aside. I think we're moving more and more in this respect toward a consolidated form of elitist dictatorship, represented by these whimsical activities on the part of the executive, supported by parties that now are imposing rather than representing the choices, imposing their own choices rather than representing the choice of the people. And this is the crisis of our time. And people keep trying to pretend that we can just go on with business as usual, but we can't. We need to start analyzing this crisis and deciding how we achieve a fundamental revival of both the principles and the practices that in politics and government are compatible with government of, by, and for the people. And if we don't, then it's gone. And we will soon, very soon, reach the point where we can't get it back.
Very insightful, Dr. Keyes. Mr. Solomon, tell us your thoughts on this.
Well, I think that Alan, of course, has hit the essence of it. Let me just give some thought process. What Geithner is espousing is what liberal thought process is based on, and that is that government is the essence. God is not. I mean, that's the dichotomy. If you take all limits off of government, and if you eliminate any restraint on their ability to spend money to indebt the people today, tomorrow, next year, next century, then you have made government, in essence, God. And to make that statement is so against the concepts upon which this country was based that it almost takes your breath away, but it isn't surprising from the left.
Very good. Brent Johnson, what's your comments on this?
Well, first, on the debt issue, I mean, this is typical Keynesian economic theory, which is that you can borrow yourself into economic health, which is absurd. Okay, the more, under Keynesian principles, if you borrow more money, then you have a healthier economy. The more in debt you are, the better off it is. And, no debt limit would simply allow the ultimate Keynesian economic society, which is absurd. But that's where Geithner is coming from. It's from, if we could just borrow an unlimited amount, not have to worry about the politics of it, then we would be fine. It's not true. However, Congress has shown no backbone over the years to say no to the president. Last time they just said, yes, sure, we'll raise the debt ceiling, and I see no reason for I see no reason to believe that they won't do it again and again and again and again. What we need to have Congress with a backbone that says, I don't care what you say, I don't care what you do, the debt ceiling will not be raised, period. That means that you cannot borrow any more money. You have to start cutting services. You have to start cutting spending, really cutting the spending, not cutting the increases in spending. And, of course, nobody wants to take that on. Nobody wants to be responsible for that because somebody will not like it. And after all, you can't have anybody not liking you. In terms of the other economic stories that you're talking about, all of it comes back down to this issue of money. Money being a political vehicle, money being a vehicle for acquiring more power. We have a society that is ruled by money. Scripturally, the love of money is the root of all evil. Is there any wonder why our society has become so dark and so black with such corruption? There should be no wonder why, because money has been the guiding principle. If what you're doing has gotten you a result you don't like, then you got to do something different.
Well, the government's definitely
That's what
stealing
I'd like
money,
to see.
but they're also stealing money from people that aren't even born yet, which I think is really immoral and should be illegal. But Dr. Keys, we only have like 6 minutes left, but could you touch on the Senate has not turned in a budget, and what would be the effect of a balanced budget? Could that really influence what's happening with our debt ceiling?
Well, I think that it could, you would have to change, and this is something these guys don't want to face. It's what I have argued for many, many years. In order to take the right approach to the budget, you have to basically change the understanding of government's role in our society, and return to an understanding that puts the individuals and the families and the business enterprises and the free associations and the churches in the lead in dealing with all of the aspects of economic life, and which sees the government not as the creator of jobs and all these other lies, but simply as an instrument to be used for those specific common good purposes for which power has been delegated to the government. You have to return to that understanding. If you're going to take the same understanding they're having with this not only is it Keynesian nonsense in terms of debt and spending and their relationship to the welfare of everybody, like government's going to generate prosperity. That's the Keynesian lie. But you are also saying that government is now going to overthrow the family and take over its role in raising children. That's what they've been trying to do with the schools and things of this kind. Government is going to take over the whole business of character formation and throw out the institutions of faith that are meant to be under the control of the people themselves as they raise up new generations in an understanding of what is right and just. Government can't do these things. And you certainly can't maintain a free society if you let the government do these things. They can't do them economically because you're trying to buy with money what money can't buy. You're trying to take institutions like the family that are based on freely given services based on law, put a money price on those services, and then chase the ever-expanding spiral of expenditure as you try to buy with money what money doesn't buy. It's all insane. So my first and most important point is we've got to change that fundamental concept. Can't change that fundamental concept unless you are willing to look at what was the bedrock understanding with which the nation began. And that is that government is not the be-all and end-all. That ultimately there are standards and rules and also resources of spirit and heart that come to us by the power and through the creation of Almighty God. And I think that that's also at the profound heart of the great discussion that we're refusing to have. By the way, one last point. On my blog right now, I am engaged in what will be an ongoing series. I'm calling it The Christian Federalist, in which I'm talking about what I think is the understanding that fundamentally informed the system of self-government and the approach to self-government we're supposed to have in this country. And I think it might repay folks who are listening to spend some time reading these things and at least going back over some of the thoughts that I think were at the foundation of what made the success of this country possible. And the abandonment of those things is now making the success of the country impossible. And we need to turn it around quickly. And I think, finally, I think people of faith, particularly Christian folks, we have a special responsibility in this that we have been shirking for decades. We need to think things through, cease being ashamed of the gospel and wisdom of Christ, and move forward once again boldly to assert a faith perspective when it comes to leadership in this country's affairs. And that's what I'm arguing on my blog.
Great. I can't wait to read that. Thank you for your insightful comments as always. We're just about out of time. I'd like to thank our guests and wish all of them and all of our viewers a very happy and safe Thanksgiving holiday. We'll go around the horn for a final thought in the last minute and a half. Dr. Keys.
Well, I just want to reiterate again. I hope folks will visit loyaltoliberty.com, loyalto to liberty.com, because I think we need to do some really serious thinking, and then we need to take some actions right now.
Brent Johnson.
Well, I just want to also ask people to visit my website at www.freedomradio.us, and from there you can tune into my show, The Global Freedom Report. Hope to see you there, or hope to hear from you over there. And you can also access the information we have about helping you to live free in today's surveillance society. Thanks, everybody, for being here.
Thank you. And our last word goes to the man, Stan Solomon.
Well, I want to encourage everyone to go to loyaltoliberty.com. I want everyone to go to freedomradio.us, and I want everyone to turn their eyes to God and thank Him for all the blessings we have. Sometimes in all of our moaning and groaning and complaining and criticizing, we forget this is the most blessed nation in the history of the world. We are the most blessed people, and there's no better time perhaps than Thanksgiving to give some thought to that.
All right, that's it for tonight. Till next time, God bless you and God bless America.
Happy Thanksgiving to all.
Mm-mm.